child welfare professionals can use the Black Foster Youth Handbook. Welcome to Part 2. In Part 2 of this 3-part series, we are continuing to answer the question, how can child welfare professionals use the Black Foster Youth Handbook in their specific practice and work? But first, let's address the question, why is it the Black Foster Youth Handbook?
Yes, so I want to say hello and Grand Rising, good evening, good afternoon. I don't know when you all will see this, but I want to talk about why I'm specifically writing a book for Black foster youth. And I think that this is an important topic because the people that have been supporting me, that have been sharing my work, constantly tell me that people are confused as to why it's specifically Black foster youth, and why isn't it all foster youth, and why isn't it other plug and play the ethnicities. And it took me a minute to just kind of like seep it in, because I honestly didn't think that it needed to be addressed or explained. But as more people are telling me about the misperception of the Black Foster Youth Handbook, I realized that I need to address it. So the main reason why it's the Black Foster Youth Handbook is because, well, I myself am Black and brown. I'm mixed. So my father is of African descent and my mother is of indigenous descent, also known as Mexican. And I can really only speak to that narrative, right? If I am Black and brown, I can really only speak to my personal experience in the foster care system, and even before the foster care system, of racism, poverty, which, poverty can also interchange with institutional racism, and the history of institutional racism and how that has shown up in different ways in our families, in our communities. So that's one reason. Another part is just my personal experience of going through colorism and how that has shaped the way I view beauty, and how I had to decolonize my mind and reprogram my mind on what beauty really means, as opposed to the quote-unquote dominant society's viewpoint and portrayal of beauty. So that's also some pieces that I felt were imperative to talk about. And I do think that as brown and Black people, you'll be able to relate to that, because, well, more often than not, from the conversations that I've had with young people, older people, we all experience those inconsistencies, whether that's in our mindset or in our families. And it's really important that we shut those narratives down and we replace those narratives with something else. So that's one of the main reasons. A lot of times, since I've mentioned and been promoting that the Black Foster Youth Handbook is going to be coming out, and other people have been sharing that, sadly, a lot of people have felt like it was a personal attack on their specific story. They felt like because I specifically am talking about the Black foster youth, or people of color, indigenous people, that now excludes their story from being significant or important or relevant. And that is far from the case. I in no way have the intentions of minimizing anyone's story. I do want to be clear that the Black Foster Youth Handbook, however, again, is specifically geared towards young people of color, because I myself am a young person of color. So it's not a personal attack on any ethnicity or race. And that's something that I've learned that just continuously kept coming up. And I was like, this is actually insane, because like, why would you think that? But that's why I want to be clear that the Black Foster Youth Handbook is definitely not to minimize anyone's story. However, I do believe that, it's just simply different. The narrative of Black and brown young people, specifically navigating through foster care, is different. Even the history around it, of how institutional child welfare and racism has shown up throughout history, and how Black and brown communities have a more tribal and communal way of being. We look to our families, we look to our auntie, we look to our aunt, our uncles, our cousins, our big brothers, our other family members to support us, and that has always been, or even neighbors and other people that are in the same ethnicity as us. So the way we even view life, love, and I'm speaking historically, because I feel like a lot of those pieces and narratives have also been diluted because of the colonization of our ancestors. So that's also important to, and I don't know, like, we can't keep putting that under the rug and saying like, oh, we're all the same and everything is the same, and like, this doesn't need to be separated from this. But I don't really believe that. I believe that it's more so acknowledging everyone's differences, acknowledging the beauty in everyone's differences, and specifically systemic racism and the child welfare system, recognizing that there are flaws. Okay, there are flaws, there are things that are going wrong, and specifically impacting young people of color disproportionately more than other ethnicities, and taking some accountability, I would say, awareness, accountability, and then really recognizing that, there's a need for change. And how can we start, being clear about some of those solutions? And so that's the main preface of the Black Foster Youth Handbook, and why it's so imperative that it exists. When I was in foster care, I felt very alone, very sad. I wasn't allowed to be with my siblings. We were separated after we were removed from our kinship placement. So we were first placed with our aunt and uncle, and then it didn't work out, is what I'll say. And so unfortunately, we had to be separated, and we were separated by gender, which I do talk about in the book more in depth. But that whole piece really was difficult for me, because it then, you have to, well, if you're a person that, when you were younger, you had to step up to the plate and be almost like a mother figure to your siblings, then I think that it just completely reshapes the way you see, one, the world, but your role in other people's lives. You always take on, the provider and caretaker role, because, whether your parents wanted to or didn't want to, they didn't show up in the ways that were most beneficial to you or your siblings. And so for me, that was the case. And so when we were separated, I still had, this motherly duty to, make sure my siblings were okay. And I felt like I had to do this. And it created a lot of, I think, mental challenges for me, where I was depressed sometimes because I couldn't talk to them. I couldn't message them. So we just ended up slowly growing apart over the years. One, because our foster parents and the nature of foster care is basically, what's going to be best for the foster parents type of thing. And there's other biases that are at work. So there's the bias of, if you're a young woman of color, that possibly or more than likely you're promiscuous, and that means that, quote unquote fast or whatever it is. Even if you're not, there's already people that view you that way. And same for young men of color, where you'll be viewed as promiscuous, you'll be viewed as aggressive, you'll be viewed as basically on your way to be a quote unquote thug. So there's a lot of biases that come around and understanding the narrative of what it means to be Black in foster care or brown in foster care. And those narratives can't be erased just because everyone wants it to be, all foster youth matter kind of stuff. And I agree with that. All foster youth do matter. And it's the same thing with the All Lives Matter and, other things. But it's not really about that specifically. It's about all of our experiences matter. However, this is me speaking on my piece in my personal story and hoping to educate young people that are currently experiencing foster care and have already experienced foster care, as well as those that are supporting young people, those that are always around them and talking to them. So that includes social workers, foster parents, or resource parents, CASAs, GALs, all of that. And it's definitely not going to be overnight process and oh, this is really cool. This has been decades and decades of evolution of the foster care system. And so it's really those four things that I said, going back to becoming aware of those biases towards specifically young people of color, and how can we do the work to make sure that we're not stepping on their opportunities to move forward. I've heard from so many people that because they were a quote unquote golden child or doing well, that they received certain opportunities or even knowledge of opportunities more so than others. And that also isn't fair, because just because someone is not coping well to their new reality, that shouldn't be demonized and seen as you don't deserve access to these opportunities or resources. And that's another topic for another time, but that's also in the book. And how can we become more equitable about providing those opportunities and access to resources? Because something else I learned is that over traveling across the nation is that there's over hundreds if not thousands or hundreds of thousands of organizations specifically for foster youth, and nobody really is talking about all these organizations. There's so many, and so many resources. And that's also something that I want to bring to the light, is that, hey, there's resources, there are people that care about you. You're not alone, and you definitely can make it through, because at the end of the day, it won't feel that. It's not going to feel like that. It's going to feel like, there's no way that I can get through my situation. It will feel like there's no way that I'm ever going to become, whatever their version of success is. And it's just not true. That's a narrative that maybe our parents told us, maybe someone we really loved and cared about said something very negative to us. For me, that was the case. My mom said a lot of negative things to me, and others about how I was going to be just like my mom, and that wasn't a compliment, I'll say that. And just, I don't know, it was a lot of really dark times, and I feel like not a lot of people were ready to open their mind to a possibility that I wasn't going to be my mom, I wasn't going to be my dad, I wasn't going to be anybody but myself, and I was going to overcome the things that a lot of people just, I guess, didn't see past. And just because it doesn't seem like it's a quote-unquote reality at that time, doesn't mean that that's not possible. I mean, things always change, and it doesn't happen in the ways sometimes that you think it would. Like, for instance, for me, you would think, because XYZ situations happen, plus foster care, that I wouldn't be here today and I wouldn't be living and leading the life that I live now. But I do. And some days aren't easy, but I still find the motivation and the courage to continue on. And that's something that is not necessarily with you at first, but it can be grown. So I do want to provide some encouragement to everyone that has been sharing and supporting me. I just want to say thank you so much. With the Black Foster Youth Handbook, and understanding that it's really just about my specific lessons, and as a person of color, that's really my narrative. That will really help with making sure that the book is able to get in the hands of young people in foster care and organizations, so that way more young people can understand, that one, it's possible, and how to actually successfully age out of foster care. Because right now the statistics are very, very low for young people in foster care, success-wise, college-wise, or any secondary education. Thank you, Alan Stamps. And for the most part, I think that I really want to reach as many people that I can, because I feel like I didn't go through these situations, and they didn't go through these situations, and whoever went through, foster care or childhood trauma on this, you didn't go through it for no reason. And it's important to understand that part, because if you just believe that all this is happening for no reason, and why me, and blah blah, and you really believe that, then you're gonna end up depressed for the rest of your life. I've met so many people that they subscribe to the why me narrative, and they're 50, 60, 70 years old, and it's still, I never made it because this and this happened to me. And they never transition out of that narrative. They just stayed there, and now they're 60 and 70 with a list of woulda, shoulda, couldas, and no big plan. There's dreams, big dreams, but no plan to achieve those dreams. So we don't want to do that. We want to have young people be confident and prepared to take on life, and not fall into homelessness, and fall into poverty, fall into domestic violence, or dealing with a lot of things that I know that I did and others have, that have experienced foster care. I definitely, again, just want to say thank you to everyone that has been sharing and supporting, and those that helped me reach my first financial goal, to even get started on the book. And I'm really looking to help as many young people as I can that are in foster care, and uplift the others that are doing this work and has been doing this work since before I even existed. And I just want to shout out all the CASAs, all the social workers. Shout out to all the foster parents, the resource parents. And shout out to, all the people even considering, being foster parents or support to young people and families. So young people and families, because I think that's also a focus that has been lost over time, is like, let's just focus on this isolated child, but like we also need to focus on like the community and the family, and how can we support the community coming together, because I'm all about unity. So having said that, I just want to say thanks, and I hope you all are having an amazing rising, afternoon, evening, wherever you're tuning in from, and peace. Thank you for your support.
Next up will be Mrs. Cordelia Cranshaw, who is a foster alumni advocate, former top 10 at Miss USA, representing Washington, D.C., founder of ARC, and recently licensed clinical social worker.
Hello everyone, I am Cordelia Cranshaw. I am a licensed clinical social worker and foster systems advocate and founder and CEO of Acts of Random Kindness. I am doing a video about the Black Foster Youth Handbook that is written by one of my good friends, Angela Banks. And I just want to share a little bit about, my experience with the book, why I decided to purchase this book, and most importantly, the importance of why professionals and foster youth should purchase this and have this on their bookshelf. So in this book, she talks about the lessons that she learned being in the system, experiencing the system, and most importantly, healing from the system. And the reason why I value this this handbook so much is because of the importance of healing from your trauma. It is so important to heal from your trauma in order to become a thriver. I myself have created a 7-step process for youth who have experienced the foster care system to become thrivers in their lives. So often we see youth that I work with, that you may work with, or you may be even a youth dealing with this yourself, that you're in survivor mode. You're constantly focusing on the day-to-day because your situation is inconsistent. And it is so valuable for us as professionals to promote well-being, wellness, mental health, and for our youth to become thrivers. And this handbook will allow you to, one, relate to someone who has went through your experiences. If you're a professional, become knowledgeable of what it is like to actually experience the foster care system, and then to hear from someone about their real life experiences and how you can help those that you're working with. We know that there are over 500,000 youth who are in the foster care system, and what that means for them is that, and what statistics say, is not only were these youth removed from their families, not only was that the case, but they also are being bounced around from home to home while in the system. They have the chance of not getting their basic needs met and then going on and not graduating high school. I think the percentage is like 50%. And then they don't have the opportunity to get a higher education, meaning college, 4-year college, associate's degree, master's degree. That percentage is anywhere from 3 to 6, maybe 10%. So these are the situations and circumstances that these youth are experiencing, and a part of how that can all be avoided, a part of how we can begin to debunk these myths, begin to change the trajectory of the lives of children facing the foster care system, rebuilding our communities, and making sure that our youth are successful citizens in their own communities, is this book. This is it. This is definitely going to give you real life. And that's what I love so much about this book. Her ability to just be real with the audience, with her readers, and be vulnerable and talk about the things that she experienced as a foster youth and how youth, especially African American youth, can maneuver through the system and become successful. So I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to share with you all why I believe this book needs to be on your bookshelf, whether you're a professional, stakeholder, a youth. Please get this. This needs to be on your bookshelf. It is something that really is going to open your eyes and insight, especially those who have not experienced the foster care system. It's something that you really cannot explain and describe if you've never been through it. And, we have that connection. Angela and I, we have that ability to know what it's like to have been in these youth's shoes, what it's like to be removed from your family, to face trauma, but then ultimately to heal. And I'm so grateful that her and I have been able to connect on ways that you heal through your trauma, because everyone experiences trauma differently. It impacts them differently. However, it sticks with you forever. And it's something that we can never get rid of. We can never go back and undo. But gratefully, our experiences and our struggles have shaped us into the women that we are today, and have allowed us to find our passion and our purpose. And so I just love that, and I love this book, and I can't wait to finish getting through the entire thing and using it for the work that I do with the children and families that I serve.
Well, what is the problem this book is addressing? This book, the Black Foster Youth Handbook, is to address one, the effects of foster care for young people during foster care, as well as what happens to young people after foster care, as well as supporting child welfare professionals in trying to guess what a young person is going through and how they'd be able to support them. In the book, there are several tips, lessons, chapter exercises, and so many ways that you learn as a child welfare professional how to interact with your youth, how to find out different things about what they're going through in their personal lives, and also helping them to not just stay in their trauma, but be able to dream and plan for a life beyond it. The Black Foster Youth Handbook is a double-edged sword that addresses multiple problems, but mainly those two. One, the problem of young people aging out without self-sufficiency, esteem, or a support network. And two, for child welfare professionals to understand how to stay connected, how important it is to stay connected, as well as being a partner through the experience of foster care. Next, we are hearing from Tamisha Macklin, foster alumni advocate, spoken word artist, and co-founder of Elevating Connections.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamisha Macklin. I am a foster care youth alumni and also program manager at Elevating Connections. Today, I'm going to talk about how child welfare professionals and really any youth serving professional can utilize the Black Foster Care Youth Handbook when working with their clients. So when I found out about the Black Foster Youth Handbook and when Angela asked me to be a part of the book launch, I was really excited because this is something that has been missing from the child welfare system for a really long time. A lot of youth need, especially youth of color, need resources that's going to support them on their journey, but that's going to really specifically talk about what it's like, what that experience is like being a youth of color within the child welfare system. And through my lived experience, I had firsthand knowledge on some of the challenges it was to grow up and oftentimes be, the only Black person, in the household. And then to also not really know about like who I am and my history. And, I didn't have my mother growing up. And so even Black hair, and how to take care of your hair and how to embrace that when people are like, your hair is nappy and things like that. And this handbook touches on that, and it embraces that, and it talks about how beautiful it is to be natural and be who you are and embrace who you are as a person. So I'm really, really excited to introduce this with my youth at Elevating Connections. And the way that I'm going to do that is that I'm starting a book club through one of our programs. So let me back up just a little bit and tell you a little bit about Elevating Connections and the work we do and how that came about. So Elevating Connections started through a summer camp program called Camp to Belong. This is a national organization. And so I found out about Camp to Belong in 2012. And I knew, and so Camp to Belong reunites siblings that are separated in foster care. And I was separated from my siblings. So when I found out about this amazing program, I was like, I have to be a part of it. And I wanted to volunteer. So because when I transitioned out of the foster care system, I decided that I wanted to help other youth on their journey. So I did a lot of volunteer work, and I was studying human services at the Community College of Denver. So I ended up, being a camp counselor, and then I had the opportunity to get together with the executive director of Elevating Connections and other board members to start something because we wanted to serve youth, not just for 1 week over the summer. And so we wanted to have a year-long programming for youth that were separated from their siblings. So we came together and we started Elevating Connections. And and we've expanded and grown. And so we did connecting events. And then as we got further along, we're like, I work full-time with runaway and homeless youth. And so I wanted to have like more resources for youth that were transitioning and also having resources for older youth. So we ended up starting the Empowering Youth Expressions program. And that started through writing workshops and poetry. And so through the Empowering Youth Expressions program, we're able to expand and teach youth how to advocate and have creative ways of sharing their story and expressing themselves through art, poetry, music, and even comedy, which is really amazing. So after finding out about the Black Foster Youth Handbook, I was like, I want to start a book club in the new year for 2021. So we're going to be starting the book club on MLK Day next Monday. Can't wait. And the reason why I like this resource is because it's very hands-on, where you have time for self-reflection, and it's a workbook. So each week that we meet for the club, we're going to be able to it's going to be in a group setting, but it's going to be virtual. And we might try to do some small groups with it. And I'm really excited because it's virtual, I'm able to work with youth all across the state in each county. And so right now we have over 5 counties involved in this book club. So that's really exciting. And like I said, youth serving professionals can use this. There's different sections in here. There's poetry in here. There's resources. It talks about rights, policy and legislation, healthy relationships. And there's just so many different lessons. And it's really about empowering our youth and letting them know that it's okay to be your true self and set goals for yourself and really focus on becoming your best self. So I'm really excited to be on this journey with my youth. I'm really thankful that I had the experience, and I'm proud of Angela for all the amazing work that she's doing for foster care youth. This is life changing, and anybody that's working with transition age youth populations and youth that are still in the child welfare system can use this resource. It's needed, and the time is now. And so I've been able to share this within the Colorado Youth Leadership Network across the state for different organizations to learn more about it and to learn more how they can utilize this when they're serving their clients. So definitely, if you have not got a copy, get yourself a copy and get your youth a copy of this amazing tool. Thank you all. Happy New Year.
In honor of Black History Month, I'm going to read Lesson 6 on page 69 from the Black Foster Youth Handbook. Lesson 6. Black history is still relevant today. For as long as I am Black, I am historic. I do not need a month. I exist for a lifetime. Carl Burrow. Well, there is so much to know and so little space on paper. This is something that I can dive into all day, but alas, I will keep it short. Many people think that Black history is no longer relevant because it has already passed. However, the past teaches us so much about the future if we take time to understand it. Much can be learned by examining the different perspectives and taking the time to grasp the lessons it can teach us. For instance, let's take the word Black. The word Black is often a way we as people of color describe ourselves. This concept gets misconstrued, and I have noticed that the lack of information around this word and its internalized perception can create identity issues within our communities. Many people struggle between using African American, Indigenous, or Black when referring to people in relation to the African diaspora, among others, and I only wish to empower you to dive deeper into the concepts I will touch on in this lesson. Throughout history, the word Black has been used to describe a certain genotype of human beings that have evolved over time. From Moor to the N-word to colored to Negro to Afro-American, and of late, the interchanging of the words Black and African American. Black was used for primarily two reasons after the enslavement of people of African descent and indigenous origins. One, to separate the ones who would receive societal privileges from those deemed ineligible. And two, to erase the true tribal and cultural history of our enslaved ancestors. Notice that I use the word enslaved as opposed to slaves. What's the difference? One is a descriptor and the other is an identity. Our ancestors were not slaves. They were human beings that were stolen from their native land and or, for our indigenous brothers and sisters, had their land stolen from them. The term Black is still serving these purposes today, whether or not we would like to acknowledge these facts. It has become an umbrella term to describe people with certain genotypes, phenotypes, mannerisms, and even levels of class that do not have access to certain basic human rights, known in today's society as privileges. At one point, it was a privilege to be considered human, to be treated with respect and dignity. It was a privilege for your life as a person of color to be honored and considered valuable, past slave owners' monetary compensation for it. How do you think that affected our people from generation to generation? And this is an excerpt from page 74. Black history is every single day, 365 days a year. Let us increase our celebration in February, but let it only be that, an increase, not a substitute. Why should our search and celebration of history only be minimized to 1 month? I am a phenomenal woman of color every single day, and so are you. A phenomenal man, woman, or person of color that was birthed from pure greatness, beauty, and a warrior mentality. We are our ancestors, each and every day. We must walk in the alignment every month, every week, every day, every hour, every minute, and every second that we proclaim to be alive and well. It is our birthright. It is our duty. We are creating history with each and every moment. Now, what history will you create? What history have you already created for yourself, your future generations, and melanated people all around? I'm not speaking to those that don't care about all our ancestors endured for us to be here, or to those who disregard our ancestors' struggle as something they somehow deserved. I'm speaking to the ones who honored literal blood, sweat, tears, and sacrifice to make it alive, and one day for someone down the line to birth you. Think about that. Your lineage made it through all of that pain and anguish beyond what many of us couldn't possibly understand, to one day birth you. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Your purpose on this planet is sacred. So let's stay focused. Black history is 365 days a year, not just 1 month of the year. Let's celebrate our history in February, but understand that the work continues for the months and lifetimes to come. Next, we will be hearing from Emilio Swann, detailing how a handbook could have changed his trajectory of aging out of foster care. Check out that Black Foster Youth Success Matters t-shirt. Emilio Swann is a Foster alumni, internationally recognized music artist, motivational speaker, and entrepreneur.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Emilio Swann, aka Saucy. And before I get into it, I just want to give a huge thanks to Angela for giving me and blessing me with the opportunity to be in her event. So I entered the system at the age of 5 in Sin City, Las Vegas, Nevada, along with my older brother and my younger sister. We got adopted when I turned 10, but ultimately the adoption failed and I entered back into the system at the age of 14. I was sadly separated from my sister and my brother, and I aged out of the system at the age of 18. I went through around 17 different homes, both good and bad, but all big parts of my foster journey. As I headed down my adulthood path, I started turning my passions into my careers. For instance, to my right, you got my customized Air Forces, and to my left, you got my music, which I'll be sharing a piece later off my first album. If I had a handbook while I was still in the system that told me, 1, I'm not the only person going through what I'm going through, 2, that if this person made it out, maybe I have a chance of making it out myself, and 3, answering a lot of the questions that I had while I was in care, I would have transitioned into adulthood so much smoothly. Most of my foster care journey was just driving around blindly. I didn't know where I was going and I didn't know how to get there. But imagine having a handbook that laid out a map before your eyes, that showed you the best routes and the safest way to get there. That's what a handbook like this would have done for me. Not only that, but it's written by someone that's been on a similar path as myself. I would rather take advice from someone who's maneuvering the same obstacles that I am versus someone who's never driven at all. Once again, I just want to give Angela a big thanks for giving me the opportunity to be a part of her event, as well as sharing one of my songs. And the song is called Back to the Days, part of my first album called Shining. And with that being said, let's give it a listen. Yeah, yeah. Let's get it, Saucy. Let me take y'all back to the days when I was back in 9th grade. I was chillin', evil villain, all the hell that I raised. And all the females were crazed, cause they were all after me. Like, who is that? Who is him? What is his name? I was that fly boy, fly kicks, hiding from my side chicks. Spend a little money, but I spend it all on my big ladies. Always acting crazy, mad cause I don't claim I'm saying, do you love me? Maybe.
Yes, oh my gosh, I just love that song. So, if you haven't already heard of Saucy, go ahead and check him out on all platforms. Check out the song Shining and the other songs on his album. It's honestly so dope, and I don't say that about all music. I just genuinely love his music, and he just, he's going up. So if you know anyone that knows someone that is a producer or, reach out to him, and he is amazing. So let's take a look inside the Black Foster Youth Handbook. And this right here is actually the Fostering Success Scavenger Hunt. Like I said, there's all kinds of activities and worksheets and all kinds of things in here. This is the color version of the Fostering Success Scavenger Hunt, which really supports young people's journey in foster care, helping them to understand the terminology and get acclimated in the new space that they're in, as well as so many other things. So essentially how you could use this is you could make a copy of it, or you could get a copy of it on, where is it? On the website at www.blackfosteryouthhandbook.com, and you'll be able to print it out and hang it up in the room or in a mutual location, and have young people go through each and every one until you're completely finished with the scavenger hunt, which the rest of the book will help you go through this, as well as bring up other activities for you and your young person to get acclimated together, as well as prepare them for success outside of foster care, interdependence, not independence, interdependence, and begin to heal. Our next and final speaker is Kayla Morgan. She is a foster alumni, Black and Brown mental health advocate. She is an author, a trauma-informed yogi, and founder of Resilient Roots.
Hi, my name is Kayla Morgan, and I am a foster care alumni, a foster care advocate for youth in care and families who are in the child welfare system. I'm also the owner of Resilient Roots Wellness that can be found on resilient.roots.wellness on Facebook and Instagram. And our website's www.resilientrootsgr.com. I'm so thankful to be able to come here in this space and talk about the Black Foster Youth Handbook. This book is something that I could have used in care. When I was in care, there was no trauma-informed practice for youth in care who'd experienced trauma. The narrative around my case was very negative. I was over-sexualized, like most youth of color in care. I like to tell people that my story is very much one of falling through the cracks. I feel like my rights as a foster youth were violated multiple times, and I did not have the knowledge or the empowerment to speak up on those rights or enforce those rights. So for professionals in the welfare system who are walking alongside youth right now who are traumatized from being removed from their families for whatever reason, can use the Black Foster Youth Handbook to get on the same page, to really create equity and understanding of the system. This is a tangible tool that can help professionals engage with youth on their level. This book is interactive. I love the writing portions and the scavenger hunt. It really is a tool to build relationships so that the experience in foster care for the worker who may be experiencing secondary trauma from exposure to multiple cases, and the youth who is experiencing a whole new life, right? Their life will never be the same after experiencing foster care. I hope this becomes a norm or a practice that is embedded in all the systems of care. Everyone should be reading this book. If you're a foster parent, if you're a foster worker, if you're a judge, if you are a lawyer, you should be reading this book so that you can better serve the populations in your organization. So thank you, Angelia, for writing this book for youth, for being in the place and creating the space and giving back. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of our speakers. Be on the lookout for the Black Foster Youth Workbook coming soon, more information coming soon, and I hope you're enjoying your Black History Month, your day, and we will see you soon. Peace.